Among the half-dozen people who collect Super Cassette Vision games, Star Speeder is considered to be a must-have. It's the system's technical showpiece. The game that will make you go, wow, this system can do that? Since it is one of the must-have Super Cassette Vision games, Star Speeder also carries a bit of a price tag. It often goes for over 10,000 yen, though I managed to get my copy for a bit less than that. Star Speeder is a racing game. Your only goal is to make it to the end of the track in a certain amount of time. That's the winning time in the upper left-hand corner. But beating that time doesn't mean that you win. That's the time to beat in order to come in third. Second and first place have a higher requirement. But as long as you come in at least third, then you're allowed to continue. During the race, you are zipping through space, and the track is always banking up and down, left and right. It looks more like a roller coaster than a race course. The right-hand button accelerates, and the slowest you can go is warp 1, while the fastest you can go is warp 6. You accelerate extremely quickly in this game, and if you press down on the controller, you can use your hyperjets to accelerate even faster. The left-hand button fires your phaser. The phaser is an extremely slow shot, and you can only have one burst out at a time. It also costs a bit of energy to fire it. If a phaser hits an opponent, then they get shoved off the course. Nobody gets blown up in this game. There are 4 levels of racing in Star Speeder. Confusingly, they're named Fantasy, Adventure, Competition A, and Competition B, but it's really levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Each of these has 4 tracks in them, and you'll get different obstacles depending on which one you're playing. On Fantasy, there's only opposing vehicles, and that's it. Adventure adds some stationary obstacles. Competition A has vehicles that fire back at you, and Competition B brings all of that together. If you're hit by something in the road, or go off the road and hit one of the colored guideposts, then your ship stalls out and is reduced to warp 1. It will take a few seconds before you're allowed to accelerate again. There is a 2-player mode in Star Speeder, but it's just alternating players. And that's literally everything there is to playing the game. Star Speeder is a very basic game to play. One thing that you'll quickly notice in Star Speeder are the digital voice samples that start and end the race. Star Speeder was released at the end of 1985, and digital voices were incredibly rare among any kind of video game. Rare enough that Star Speeder is one of the very first console games to have spoken words and not require an additional peripheral to play them. There were a couple games that had digitized audio effects, shouts and laughs and things like that, and a few console games that had voices generated by an additional peripheral. But Star Speeder has actual, understandable English phrases, and it's all in the cartridge. In many ways, Star Speeder is a very primitive racing game. You don't even have a brake. You have to feather the accelerator as you go around curves. And the phaser itself winds up being pretty useless. It's hard enough to hit someone off in the distance. It winds up being way easier to try to avoid people. And I wound up mainly only firing when someone was dead center. But in 1985, there really weren't a lot of options for racing games on consoles. And this is easily the best looking one out there. Yeah, the backgrounds might never change, but have you seen how smooth that road in space is? It's a great example of how Epoch used the advanced sprite handling capabilities of the Super Cassette Vision. A lot of the sprites might only be able to be one color, but that's just fine for the edge of a road, and it could quickly swap sprites out for scaled versions, giving the race an impressive illusion of depth. Star Speeder would have made for an amazing demo in 1985. These days, it's more likely to cause someone to go, huh, that's it? It's not a game that's aged gracefully, a fate that befalls most games that are technologically impressive when they come out. This is another case of Epoch making a cutting-edge game for 1985, with gameplay that was a bit backward for 1985.
Great race.